Physiognomy, also known as face reading, is the study or belief that one can discern a person's character or disposition based solely on their outward facial features and expressions. The notion stretches far beyond the scope of mere first impressions and proposes that there are deeper truths embedded in the symmetry of the eyes, the curve of the lips, or the prominence of the brow. While the concept may at first seem quaint or folkloric, its history is long and deeply rooted in ancient thought. Among early Greek philosophers, it was a serious discipline. They believed that the soul left traces upon the body, and especially upon the face. This idea, that the outer reflects the inner, persisted throughout many centuries. Though sometimes used in a more general sense to refer to the overall appearance of a person, an object, or even a geographical landscape, the practice as applied to human faces was once considered a legitimate branch of philosophical and medical inquiry. With time, however, it was increasingly relegated to the margins of respectability. During the 16th century, the practice fell into decline, dismissed as the realm of charlatans and vagabonds. It was later revived in the 18th century by Johann Caspar Lavater, whose writings on the subject were widely read and influential in his time. Despite this resurgence, physiognomy was eventually discarded by mainstream science in the late 19th century and has since been categorized as a pseudoscience due to its lack of empirical support and its susceptibility to cultural bias and stereotyping. Yet, even as modern scientific rigor distances itself from such approaches, the allure of physiognomy has not fully faded. In the present age, technologies capable of scanning and analyzing faces have brought the idea back to life in an entirely new form. Instead of relying on subjective interpretation, new systems utilize advanced pattern recognition, facial geometry mapping, and predictive modeling to interpret facial features. These systems are capable of extracting data points from a photograph of a face and translating them into a series of coded measurements. These measurements are then processed through complex algorithms designed to detect patterns that might correlate with personality traits, emotional states, or behavioral tendencies. This modern resurrection of physiognomy operates through a cascade of analytical steps. First, the image of a face is scanned and broken down into individual markers, such as the distance between the eyes, the width of the jawline, the curvature of the mouth, and the shape of the cheekbones. These markers are then converted into vectors and numerical values that are compared across large datasets. From this comparison, the system draws statistical inferences about what these facial features might suggest about the person's temperament, mood, or psychological profile. For instance, a certain configuration of features might be interpreted as reflecting higher levels of aggression, empathy, or openness. While these systems may appear sophisticated and objective, they raise important ethical and philosophical questions. The idea that a person's inner life can be understood or even predicted from their appearance reintroduces concerns about prejudice and the reduction of complex human traits to surface-level analysis. Moreover, such systems may inadvertently reproduce the cultural and historical biases embedded in the datasets upon which they are trained. This poses the danger of reinforcing stereotypes, especially when applied in sensitive contexts such as law enforcement, hiring processes, or public surveillance. The capabilities of these technologies are not limited to static photographs. They can also interpret live video feeds in real time, tracking micro-expressions, movements, and subtle shifts in facial tension. From this data, the systems attempt to evaluate whether someone is lying, anxious, hostile, or disengaged. Some configurations are even capable of cross-referencing facial cues with vocal patterns, gait analysis, and posture to construct a more comprehensive behavioral profile. While this may seem impressive, it is important to remember that correlation does not imply causation, and the assumptions underlying these inferences may rest on shaky theoretical foundations. Interestingly, some of these systems are used in marketing, where they are employed to gauge consumer reactions to advertisements or products by analyzing facial expressions. In other areas, they are used for educational purposes, to assess student engagement during lessons delivered through screens. The feedback generated can then be used to adjust the pace, tone, or content of the instruction. In yet another realm, such systems are being explored for their potential to identify individuals at risk of certain psychological disorders by flagging subtle expressions or patterns of facial movement that might otherwise go unnoticed by the human eye. However, even as the accuracy and scope of these systems expand, the fundamental assumptions remain controversial. There is no universally accepted scientific framework that links facial features to psychological states with consistent reliability. Human behavior is shaped by countless variables, biological, environmental, cultural, and experimental, and cannot be fully captured through surface measurements. Moreover, there is the ever-present risk that people will begin to accept these evaluations as definitive, attributing undue authority to a set of mechanical judgments divorced from context and nuance. In the darker corners of development, some programs have attempted to predict criminality or social deviance from facial structures, reviving echoes of the long discredited ideas of phrenology and eugenics. Such efforts are particularly troubling, as they suggest a deterministic view of human nature that runs counter to the principles of free will, rehabilitation, and social complexity. These applications and exclusion that are difficult to challenge because of their appearance of objectivity. Despite all these concerns, the use of such systems continues to grow. The blending of human psychology with facial data remains an alluring pursuit, especially in a world increasingly fascinated by quantification,